Welcome to today's deep dive. And we're going to be looking into the story of Project Ozma. It's kind of the beginning of it all when it comes to trying to find radio signals from alien civilizations. It's 1959, the dawn of the space age. We got some cool things to talk about, secret projects, a scientific paper that came out at a really weird time, and even a connection to the U-2 spy plane incident.
It's really a wild story. And it all starts with this young astronomer, Frank Drake, fresh out of Harvard, lands this amazing job at the National Radio Astronomy Observatory. It's like the dream for anyone who's obsessed with space.
Totally. But Drake, I read that he was like really into searching for alien signals.
Yeah.
That seems a little out there for a new astronomer, right? Wasn't everybody still focused on just like mapping the constellations back then?
Well, you got to remember that searching for extraterrestrial intelligence, or SETI as we call it today, it was seen as pretty fringe science back then. But here's the thing. Drake's boss, Otto Struve, the director of the observatory, he wasn't totally closed off to the idea.
Really, what made Struve so open-minded to aliens?
Well, Struve actually had some pretty interesting theories about the possibility of planets and life beyond Earth. He'd even done some research that suggested certain stars might have planets based on their rotation. So he gave Drake a chance. But there was a catch. It had to be a secret side project.
So Drake's working in secret, planning this experiment. Then a paper gets published that like messes everything up.
Yeah, two professors from Cornell, Giuseppe Cocconi and Philip Morrison. They publish a paper in the journal Nature called Searching for Interstellar Communications. And get this. They propose the exact same experiment that Drake's been working on secretly. It's a perfect example of what we call the parenthood principle. Basically, when an idea's time has come, it often pops up from like multiple places all at once.
Wow, what a coincidence. So what did Drake do? Was his project dead now that the idea was out there?
Nope, not at all. Actually, with the secret out, Project Ozma was officially a go. And to Drake's surprise, the scientific community was more open to it than he thought. Struve even came out publicly and supported the project. He said, an intrinsically improbable event may become highly probable if the number of events is very great.
So Struve's support kind of made the whole idea of SETI seem more legitimate.
Definitely. His influence totally helped change how people saw SETI in the science world. It opened the door for Drake to put together an amazing team of experts for Project Ozma.
All right, so Project Ozma is officially happening. What were they actually looking for, and how are they doing it? We're talking 1960 here, right? So the technology must have been super basic compared to today.
Right, the technology was pretty limited. They were using the observatory's 85-foot Howard Tuttle telescope to listen for radio signals from two nearby stars, Tau Ceti and Epsilon Eridani. They chose these stars because they were a lot like our sun and relatively close, making them good candidates for planets that could have life.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Similar stars, similar planets, maybe similar life. But what signals were they trying to pick up? Just any old radio waves coming from that direction?
They were tuned in specifically to a frequency of 1420 megahertz. This is the emission line of neutral hydrogen, the most common element in the universe. Cocconi and Morrison, remember those professors who wrote the paper that got Drake going? Well, they thought this frequency might be like a universal hailing channel.
Like a cosmic beacon they were trying to hear. Did they hear anything?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. Early on in the project, Drake was moving the telescope from Tau Ceti over to Epsilon Eridani, and he picked up this strong pulsed signal. For a second, he thought he'd actually found an alien civilization.
Wow, that must have been insane to think you'd made contact. So what happened? Was it aliens?
Not exactly. The next day, when the signal came back, Drake used a second antenna to figure out where it was coming from. Turns out the signal was from a high-altitude aircraft flying at something like 80,000 feet.
Wait, 1960? No planes could fly that high back then, could they? That's like twice as high as planes fly today.
You're right. At the time, there were no known aircraft that could reach that altitude. But then just a month later, the U-2 spy plane incident happens. And suddenly everybody knows about these top secret high-altitude planes.
You're talking about when Francis Gary Powers was shot down over the Soviet Union.
Exactly. Drake had accidentally detected a U-2 spy plane before anybody even knew they existed.
So a false alarm.
Yeah.
But what a story. It makes you wonder, did this U-2 thing have any lasting effects on Project Ozma or SETI? Did it make the government more interested in SETI, because of what it might mean if we actually did contact a super advanced civilization?
That's a good question, and one that historians are still debating. We do know that the government was already interested in radio astronomy because of its potential for intelligence gathering, and the U-2 incident probably made them even more interested. But did it directly lead to more funding or changes in policy for SETI? That's not so clear.
It's mind-blowing that something as ordinary as a U-2 flying around could end up tangled up with the search for aliens. So Project Ozma was pretty short-lived, right? But it obviously had a big impact since we're still talking about it.
Oh, definitely. It was a huge experiment that set the stage for a lot of the basic methods we use in SETI research, and it helped make the field seem like a real scientific pursuit.
Sounds like Project Ozma was just the start for Frank Drake and the whole search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
It definitely was. Project Ozma was definitely just the beginning for Drake. It really kicked off his passion for SETI, and he went on to do some amazing things.
Okay, like what? Tell me more.
Well, a few years later, Drake ended up becoming the director of the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico. You know that massive radio telescope built into a natural sinkhole? You've probably seen pictures.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Arecibo. I think I saw that in a James Bond movie. It's so cool. So
Huh.
Drake was in charge of that whole place. That must have been awesome.
Oh, yeah, it was. And while he was there, he put together one of the most famous events in SETI history, the Arecibo Message.
Wait, the Arecibo message?
Yeah.
That's the one they actually beamed out into space, right? Like a message to any aliens out there.
That's the one. In 1974, they used the Arecibo dish to send out this powerful radio signal. They aimed it at a star cluster called M13. It was a pretty bold move.
So they weren't just listening anymore. They were actively trying to reach out. What made them decide to do that?
It was a risk, but a calculated one. They knew the odds were long. M13 is really far away, like tens of thousands of light years away.
Yeah.
So even if the message reached some alien civilization, it would take another tens of thousands of years for us to hear back.
It seems kind of pointless then if we might never get an answer.
Well, I think it's important to remember that the message wasn't only about getting a response, it was about sending something out there into the universe, like a sign of human ingenuity and our desire to connect with other intelligent life. It was a way of saying, hey, we're here, we're curious.
That makes sense. It's kind of poetic.
Mm.
But what was actually in the message? Could aliens even understand it?
They designed it to be as universally understandable as possible, given what we know about physics and math. It was coded as a series of 1,679 binary digits, arranged in 73 rows of 23 digits each. When you display it graphically, this arrangement makes a visual pattern.
Okay, so it wasn't like words or sentences. What kind of pattern are we talking about?
It was a pictogram, basically, with basic info about humans and Earth. It started with the numbers 1 through 10, then the atomic numbers of some important elements like hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus. There was a representation of DNA, a simple human figure, and a diagram of our solar system showing Earth's position.
That's really clever. So they were hoping that any civilization advanced enough to pick up the message would be able to decode it.
Yeah, they were assuming that math and science are like universal languages, even for different cultures on different planets.
This is crazy. So Drake sends this message out into space, but he didn't just sit around waiting for a reply, did he?
Oh, no, definitely not. While he was at Arecibo, he was also doing some really important research in astronomy, particularly on pulsars.
Pulsars. Those are those super dense spinning neutron stars, right?
Mm-hmm.
The ones that send out those beams of radiation.
You got it. They're like cosmic lighthouses, sweeping their beams across the galaxy, and they're really fascinating to study.
So what did Drake find out about them?
His research helped us understand more about what pulsars are like and how they change over time. Like, he made major contributions to our understanding of how fast they spin their magnetic fields and what causes them to emit those strong pulses of radiation.
So even beyond SETI, Drake was making breakthroughs in astronomy.
Hmm.
It seems like this guy never stopped exploring the universe.
You're absolutely right. And even after he retired from Arecibo, Drake stayed super involved in SETI research. He became a director at the SETI Institute in California and continued to be a big advocate for the search for extraterrestrial intelligence his whole life.
Wow, what a legacy. It's
Yeah,
inspiring to see someone so dedicated to answering that big question, are we alone?
definitely. And his dedication really made a difference. Thanks to people like Drake, SETI has gone from a fringe idea to a mainstream area of science.
It's true. Now we have organizations like the SETI Institute and so many scientists around the world looking for signs of alien life.
And it's not just about finding aliens, is it? SETI pushes us to think about some really deep questions about life itself, about the potential for intelligence and consciousness beyond what we know here on Earth.
Yeah, you're right. It's much bigger than just are we alone.
Yeah.
It makes you think about where life comes from, how it evolves, what forms it might take on other planets. It's incredible. But I have to ask, after all these years of searching, are we any closer to actually answering that big question? Have we found any real proof of alien life yet?
That's a tricky question. And the answer might surprise you.
Okay, now you've really got me curious.
Yeah.
You got to tell me more. So you were saying the answer about whether we found alien life might surprise me. Did we find something?
Well, not exactly. We haven't found like radio signals or spaceships from alien civilizations, but the search has turned up some really cool stuff that makes you think, huh, maybe we aren't alone.
Okay, now you've really got me hooked.
Mhm.
What kind of stuff are you talking about?
One of the big game changers has been finding exoplanets, planets that orbit other stars. When they started Project Ozma, we didn't even know for sure if there were other planets out there.
Yeah, that's true. We only knew about the planets in our own solar system.
Exactly. But telescopes and detection methods have gotten so much better, and we've found thousands of exoplanets. And some of them are in the habitable zones of their stars, where the temperature could be right for liquid water.
You mean planets that could be like Earth? Wow. Does that mean there could be life on them?
It's possible. We haven't found any definite signs of life yet. But there are just so many exoplanets, and they're also different sizes, compositions, orbits. It makes you think there are tons of possibilities out there.
So no aliens calling us up on the radio just yet, but the odds are looking better and better.
You could say that.
Yeah.
And even if we never find those radio signals from some advanced alien civilization, what we're learning about exoplanets and what it takes for life to exist, that's super valuable. It helps us understand our own place in the universe.
I get that.
Yeah.
It makes you realize how much we still don't know about the universe and how much more there is to discover.
Exactly. And that's what makes the search for extraterrestrial life so captivating. It's a journey full of surprises.
Speaking of surprises, let's go back to that what if we talked about before. What if we actually do get a clear signal from an alien civilization tomorrow? What happens then?
Well, first we gotta make absolutely sure it's real and not a fake or some kind of mistake.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to tell the world that aliens are talking to us, and then it turns out to be just some glitch.
Exactly. So there would be a ton of double checking, lots of telescopes, different teams of scientists, everybody looking really closely at the data.
Okay, so let's say the signal is real. Then what? Who gets told first? Does the president get a call?
Well, there are probably plans for what to do, but since it's never actually happened, who knows?
I bet the news would spread super fast, though.
Oh yeah, it would be the biggest news ever.
Can you imagine the headlines? Scientists confirm alien contact. The world would go nuts. It would change everything. Our whole idea of our place in the universe would be flipped on its head.
It would challenge our beliefs, our philosophies, religions, everything. It would make us think about some really deep stuff about life and consciousness, about what our place is in the grand scheme of things.
That's heavy stuff. What about communication? Would we even be able to understand what they're saying?
That's the next big challenge. Trying to figure out an alien message could be incredibly hard, if they even designed it to be deciphered. I mean, their language, their way of thinking, their whole idea of reality. It could be totally different from ours.
I'm getting goosebumps. What if their message is like a math equation or even a piece of music? Would we even recognize it as communication?
That could definitely happen. We tend to think about communication from our own human perspective, but who knows how other intelligent beings would communicate?
This is all so mind-blowing and a little bit scary, to be honest.
I get that. It's both exciting and a little terrifying to think we might not be alone in the universe. But in the end, I think it's a good thing. It makes us think bigger, question everything, and consider things we never even imagined before.
That's a good way to put it.
Huh.
So from a secret project to the Drake equation and the crazy possibilities of actually making contact, this deep dive into Project Ozma has been incredible.
It has. And it's not over yet. As we keep exploring the universe, we might find that the most amazing discoveries are still to come.
You've definitely given me a lot to think about. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure. It's
Yeah.
always great to talk about SETI and the search for life beyond Earth.